You were born and grew up in Saskatchewan.
Yes.
So how important was your Prairie background when it came to your songwriting career?
It's the rock on which you stand, where you're from, and what you choose, where you choose to be recognized from. I find too, because I spend a lot of time there now. My husband and I, my husband farms. Mm-hmm. He's gone back today. Him and his sister have taken over the family farm the last 10 years. So I get back there a lot. My mother's still there. I do get back there a lot. But more than anything, I find that it's, first of all, there's hardly anything written about it. Mm-hmm. So that leaves a wide open place for me to write about, because there's not much that expresses what I feel about that part of the world. So that's been wonderful. And most people just think it's the large flat place before Banff. All those prairies are just, the boring part till you get to the interesting mountains. But for me, they're spectacular. Mm-hmm. And I love that country, that part of the country. So it inspires me to write. And when I get out there, there's something, the Newfoundlanders say where you belong to. And I think that's probably a better expression. That's where I belong to. Right. Even though I live someplace else, I've traveled all over the world. I'm now living in Montreal. There's something about that place, landscape, culture, people that just rings my bell, and I belong there. I understand it, I guess, on a how you understand things as a child on an accepting level. You just know it. You don't even recognize what you know. For me, that's what I have written about a lot too, and it was a wide open field. There was hardly any, so to speak, anybody writing about that part of the world. So that's always ironically, some of those songs that are about the most little tiny places or the most personal places have gone on to be the most universal, which is, like Wood River has been sung by 1,000 choirs. It's absolutely fabulous. Sometimes people will sing along. I absolutely love it. I feel like Anne-Marie and Snowbird. Wait a minute. No. Okay. Without the bank account.
without the money. So how did you get into the business at the beginning?
I was in theater. And I always sang. I wrote songs when I was young. I learned guitar, and I would sit in my room like every teenager and write angst-filled songs and funny songs. And there was a folk club in Regina that I went for, and I started to get some attention. There were very few women doing it. I was kind of inspired by, the Joni Mitchells, the solo woman singer-songwriter, and all of those, wonderful women that were out there as my, on records when I was in high school. So that's what I did. It never even occurred to me to get a band, because in those days, if you're in a band, you were, banging the tambourine and singing Proud Mary, Keep on Rolling behind some guy, So for me, I went into theater first. That was my first love. I studied theater at university, but I was always kind of singing on the side and playing guitar, and I kind of thought, well, if the theater thing doesn't work out, I'll fall back on music or something like that. I always, but the theater career kind of, when I left school, I ended up working with Theatre Pass Marais and everything. And there's a point when I went to see a show called Sneezy Waters, the show he never gave.
Yeah.
Hank Williams, The Snow He Never Gave, by Sneezy Waters. And it was so powerful. I was right on the corner from a theater I was working in. And I went there, I don't know how many nights. And I realized this is theater and music. I think if they'd had a real active musical theater action at that point in my life, I probably would have gravitated. Part of me wanted to be, off singing and dancing on stage. But I ended up deciding that if I was, music was really where my heart was. So I went back west, went back home, and started, clawing my way to the middle, as we say. I did a first tour with Heather Bishop. I'd met her earlier, and we decided we'd do the Saskatchewan Suite in 2 acts, because she's from Saskatchewan, so we booked the shows ourselves. And because in those days it was really hard to even get noticed, let alone a review, or we had nothing in our press kits. So we did that, and that kind of started it. And we were just talking about, there was a women's bookstore that opened in Montreal, and just a couple of days ago, and I was thinking, well, I don't know how many of those women's bookstores I played over the years, getting started, because they would encourage women, and I was at a really interesting time, and there was hardly anybody doing what we did, and certainly nobody in a leather skirt and cowboy boots, a cowgirl skirt and smiley pockets and that kind of thing. I was kind of an oddball. I think I've always been kind of not what people expect all my life.
Okay, well, that's a good thing, I think.
In the end, it certainly was. It allowed me to be different, it allowed me to be noticed. I had a song called Jerks that I wrote about guys that hustle women on the street. It turned out to be, something people remembered and liked a lot.
one thing that was unusual for you, particularly at the beginning, was that apart from singing, you engaged your audience in you'd talk to them and tell jokes, and which was kind of unusual for the time.
Oh, yeah. Because I did so many opening acts, I think that's part of it. I mean, I opened for Down Child Blues Band in front of the raging, roaring biker crowd. In order to get them on your side, you had to do something more than sing, I think. But I think that was part of it. I was at ease on stage. I liked the stage. I loved being on stage. It was my home. So I think that theater thing meant that I was at ease talking to people, because in Theatre Pass Mariah, we built our shows, we talked to the audience. And I think that experience came back in my live show. And it allowed me, when people are, like, I love it when people laugh. I think that's part of your job, is to get them out of their real life into something else. Yeah. But it also allows me to then do something quite serious and quite meaningful afterwards, something that's a little more serious topic. It gives them a little rest. And it really got serious in 86 at Expo, when I had to do so many shows. And so the only way, and I was kind of representing the prairies and all that stuff. And then I got into some serious storytelling and explaining culture and wedding things. And that became really fun. And I got people dancing. And a lot of it was just because I didn't want to have to sing the whole time. And I was representing the prairies, which a lot of people didn't know anything about. And I felt like I was their, the ambassador to that part of the world. And I realized, too, that what I viewed as normal was actually odd, or a cultural thing. Like, not everybody does make pierogies and eat Nanaimo bars, and not everybody does dance the polka and have a wedding band. And, all of that stuff that you kind of take for granted when you're growing up, you realize later is, this is a cultural thing, this is a prairie thing, or whatever. And I think I just kind of worked with that. And what I found is that, even myself, but other prairie people didn't realize how much of that was cultural and how lovely it was, and cool and funny and interesting.
Well, speaking of showcasing kind of cultural aspects on stage, you've travelled all over the world and you've played in India and China. And how does your performance go over in places like that, where you think, well, they'd never heard of country music in China?
Well, China was a really interesting thing. First of all, because so much of my music is lyric-based, so I had to stop and think, well, what of my songs will carry, regardless of whether people can understand me or not? And what I didn't realize at the time is that Western music was outlawed. Like, all kinds of Western music was outlawed. And most of the people in this Beijing Arts Festival were like folk groups and folk dancing groups from Peru or someplace, or Norway. They're out there leaping about. And I came with a native dance troupe, which was amazing. And I didn't even think about it. I got out there and sang my song, and people just went wild for it. And in fact, one of them, I was at one... I laugh about this now, but there was a concert that we played in this giant hall where Deng Xiaoping, who was the leader of the China at the time, was there. It was like the launch of the big Beijing Arts Festival. And the concert guy said, "Yeah, we were a little worried about you because you did this." And we were kind of watching his reaction. They were there, and he says, "Oh, she looks like a very lovely young woman." So they were kind of relieved, because I didn't know. What do I know? I've never been to China before, and it was kind of interesting. But when we would go, people would just go crazy for it, because they viewed it as racy or whatever. But it was quite an interesting experience.
You've released, about 15 albums now?
I know, gosh.
Yeah, I know. Is there any one album that stands out as a sort of career milestone for you?
I don't know. All of them took me in different directions, for sure. I think that Wood River, because of the songs on it, because Wood River became so popular, because of that whole prairie thing, and ironically did not get nominated for a Juno, which I found unbelievable. And it was a record we made under total duress. Two friends of mine actually put money in so we could actually press it. We were so desperate at that point for money. So it was one of those against all odds albums. And it's those songs that sold it, I think, the Prairie Thing and Wood River and all of those tunes. And I think it's got some great stuff on it. So I would think that would be, I don't know what is career changing, because, it's hard to tell nothing opened up the door to me getting a record deal, or I think Gentle of Heart could have done it. I don't think we were ready to do it, but all of them got it. I'd say the first one, because it put me on the map and allowed me to get gigs and festivals to open me up, just getting that recording done. was really important. And in those days, it cost so much money to do. Now, I shudder to think now. I mean, now that it's so much easier now because you can, the equipment is so much cheaper. People can do it themselves a lot of times, or with help, or you can start a studio with $15,000, not $150,000 or $200,000. In those days, I hated recording. I absolutely hated it. So it's only in the last few years that I've grown to like recording because we're doing it in our own studio.
So why did you hate recording at the beginning?
Because I couldn't translate what I did live onto the recording. I think that was part of it, and it intimidated me, and my first recording experience was quite horrible, and I kind of got thrown off by it, and I think that it kind of plagued me for a long time. And I was used to playing live, and all of a sudden I'm with a group, and I should have gotten a band together and played with them for 3 months and then gone in and recorded. It would have been a better choice, but I didn't know enough to do that. So I knew I could pull it off. I knew the songs were good, and I just couldn't get it happening or bring that kind of life into the studio that I knew happened on stage. I think that's been my my nemesis, trying to get what I do live on stage. I don't know why I've never done a live album. That would probably have stopped that. But I've been extremely fortunate. I've been extremely fortunate that I was able to survive, keep a career, keep it going, even having kids. That usually nips any woman's career in the bud. But and I've lived long enough to see those changes in the industry too. Seeing lots more women out there and wonderful things happening, and a lot of it comes from us standing our ground and saying no. Put more than one woman's act. I mean, we used to get that all the time. I mean, we already have one women's act.
Oh yeah,
literally. What? You crazy? But that I am delighted to say has totally changed, and there's wonderful women writers and performers out there now.
Okay, you've been named to the Order of Canada.
I have. It was totally an honor.
Now, as I understand it, when someone is given the Order of Canada, they're told ahead of time, and they have to keep quiet about it until it's officially announced.
Yes.
How difficult was it to keep quiet about it?
Well, you can tell your immediate family, but
yeah. Oh, can you? Okay.
Actually, I was totally stunned. This is the story. There's a friend of mine named Paul Thompson, who is a director of Theatre Passe-Muraille, who championed Canadian theatre and did a lot of the theatre I did, and all his life. And when I found out he hadn't been nominated for the Order of Canada, I said, this is not right. I got the papers, and I hate filling out forms, but I did it because I just felt so strongly about it. So when they called me, I thought, I've forgotten a page, or I went through this whole thing about, and finally called them back, and they said, we want to talk to you about you've been awarded the Order of Canada. I went, what? I didn't quite believe, and then it kind of sunk in, and so I said, thank you. It was really interesting. It was like this kind of bizarre, out-of-world experience. But, it was a total shock, and it was quite astounding to be, I hadn't thought about it. I get the dress, I get my mother there and all that stuff, and get everybody there, and my sons, and I was standing, we went the night before, because it starts in the morning, and so we're sitting in the hotel, and I realized, I'm getting the Order of Canada. This is like something from my country. How extraordinary is that? It was really quite humbling, but quite amazing. It was an absolute thrill. I think that's been a thrill for me to think that somebody thought I meant enough to give me this award. It was very cool.
Good.
And it's, you slog away out there, writing about Canadian things and dealing with the people that said, well, you'd probably have more gigs if you sang more popular songs. And why are you writing about Canada? Why don't you write about, Texas? Well, I don't know, because people in Texas are writing about Texas. But, but always, it's been the audience that keeps me going, I think. And folk scene has been really, even though I didn't quite fit in the folk scene, it's been very kind to me and very good, and had great support. And if I could build my career around any bunch of people, it would be the folk scene. They're kind people. They're involved in their community. They're political. They love music. A lot of it's volunteer. How great is that? So the scene that I have been in has been one I have been proud to be part of, and you know, and here I am still doing it.